interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started. This is the Twinsburg Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, March 2nd. It's 7 p.m. Welcome, everybody. A roll call, please.
Mr. Felber?
Here.
Mr. Solera?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mrs. Sturl Waldron?
Here.
All right, if you could all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're at the point of our agenda for the President's Report. So again, good evening and welcome to the students, staff, and families from Samuel Bissell Elementary School and R.B. Chamberlain Middle School. This has been a week full of achievements around the district as well as a time for reflection. First though, congratulations to some of our athletes. To Twinsburg High School diver Maddie Posk, finishing 12th at the OHSSA State Championship Diving Tournament, and that was this last Saturday in Canton. Also, our THS Lady Tiger Bowling Team will be heading to Columbus this weekend to compete in the State Bowling Championship meet. And our THS cheerleaders will also be heading to Columbus this weekend to compete in the state cheer competition. You certainly represented and showed everyone your Tiger's pride. Speaking of Tiger pride, I was honored to participate this week once again in Wilcox Reads. I had a grand time learning about Horace, Morris, and mostly Dolores. And those are not student names, but the characters from the book I read to kindergartners. I think I had a little bit more fun than they did, maybe. But as a time for reflection, as I mentioned, we will hear 2 administrative reports on school awards as well as a detailed explanation of the Ohio Department of Education report cards. You need only pick up any newspaper in the state of Ohio or Google Ohio State report cards to note an overwhelming amount of confusion, controversy, and mistrust with these reports. How can 106 districts go from an A to an F in the overall value-added measure? Those are some of the questions we're asking. The confusion is not just from parents and educators, but many of our legislators as well. And tonight we will hear an administrative report detailing our degreed educators' perspective of the district's report card. And I mention our degreed educators as a reminder that the school board members are in the role of governance. Our educators know the students and the system the best, and they're the ones entrusted with carrying out the learning initiatives. While the grades are all across the board, I caution the community, and especially those outside our community, to reflect on the report card as only one day snapshot of our district, and that day was in 2014. We're better in most cases than most of these grades indicate. You need only to witness the achievements our students make every day, many of which are reflected by the students here tonight. We are always looking to improve, and report cards help us guide our efforts. So please, strap in as the ride is not over. We have one appeal pending on the data itself with regards to our K-3 literacy rating. The second appeal we filed with the Ohio Department of Education, which regarded missing data about our students, was approved, and the data has since been corrected. Our district is not alone amongst the 600-some Ohio districts asking questions. Questions are good for the process. After tonight's report, please direct any detailed questions about the report card to Superintendent Powers. The administration is the one living with the data every day and is doing their best to understand the moving target that is the Ohio State report card system. And as I know we have some special recognition here tonight, I will bring this report to a close and turn the meeting over to Mrs. Power for the Superintendent's report.
Good evening, Mr. Felber, members of the Board of Education. Families, thank you so much for being here tonight. We have a packed house as usual, and we have a lot of students and staff members to celebrate, and we're going to get to that in one moment. I just have a couple of announcements with my remarks this evening. As Mr. Felber indicated, we will have 2 administrative reports this evening. One will be a celebration because, if you haven't heard already, our Wilcox preschool has been awarded the 5-star rating by the Step Up to Quality review process. That's a huge accomplishment, a wonderful designation, and it's just another mark of the reason why the Twinsburg City School District is such a great place for our kids to go to school. So we'll hear more from Wilcox shortly. And then also, as Mr. Felber indicated, there will be a summary of the information released last week with regard to the local report cards. Before we get to all of that, though, kindergarten registration is underway. As I said to our parents last week at our kickoff meeting, this is the class of 2029 coming through our doors. That's an amazing thing. And as I said to the parents last week, you know, our class of 2016 can hardly wait to cross E.J. Thomas Hall stage, and we have the class of 2029 coming through the door. So it's always an interesting and exciting place here in our school district. But parents of students who are going to turn 5 before August 1st, 2015, your child is eligible to be a member of the class of 2029, or also being known as the incoming kindergartners over at Wilcox. I want to share with you a little bit of a difference in our registration process for our incoming kindergarten children. I'm going to ask Mrs. Farthing if she could please turn on the screen here. Board of Education, as you know, we're making the switch to go online with our registration process through InfoSnap, and this is going to be the first part of that process, is getting our kindergarten children registered online. And so parents, if you happen to have a 5-year-old at home or a child who will turn 5 before August 1st of this year, what we're going to ask you to do is to visit our website, www.twinsburg.k12.oh.us. And then at the top, under where it says Twinsburg City School District, there's a For Parents tab. If you click on that tab, you'll see a number of links that open underneath it. You're going to want to scroll down and click on Registration Information. And on that link, you will find a lot of information about registering your child to school, and it is there that you'll begin to create an account for yourself to be able to register your child. Once you do that, you're going to have a number of forms to complete as the pre-registration process. And then when you're finished with entering all your information there, you'll have an opportunity online to schedule your registration appointment. So this is all going to be done online this year. And we invite you to, again, visit our website, go to For Parents, scroll down to Registration Information, and then that's where you create your account and then begin to register your child for kindergarten. We have 3 registration dates, March 8th, March 22nd, and March 23rd. But remember, you're going to need to complete this online information first and then schedule your appointment for one of those 3 days so that we're ready for you when you visit the Twinsburg Community Center. That's actually where the registration will occur. And for those of you who may be new to our community, if you know where R.B. Chamberlain Middle School is, you would drive up that driveway and go past the community pool, and right beyond there is the community center, and that is where our registration will occur on March 8th, March 22nd, and March 23rd. If you have any trouble with this process, please feel free to give Wilcox Primary School a phone call. Also on that link, there's an information, a link to InfoSnap, which is our vendor that they can also assist you with the documents. So that's 2 ways to call for help if you need it in registering your child. So we look forward to seeing our parents registering their children March 8th, March 22nd, and March 23rd up at the Twinsburg Community Center. And we thank the City of Twinsburg for once again letting us use the Community Center for this important process. You know, Board of Education, we didn't used to do our screening this way, and last year, thanks to the suggestion of the Wilcox staff, we made that change. And through the registration process, there's also a screening of the children so that when they begin the very first day of school in August, our staff already knows a little bit about them. So it's a great process, and we do appreciate the board supporting our request last year to change our process. And now with the online format, I think we're going to be even more efficient than we've been before. So thank you for that. Mr. Felber, you noticed, or you mentioned the wonderful athletes that are representing our school district at the state level. I also wanted to congratulate the members of our Twinsburg High School Academic Challenge team, Captain Chris Frazier, Nick Carcione, Erwin Nana, Madeline Sudnick, and Matt Diamone, who competed on Channel 5's Academic Challenge meet last Sunday. Had a great opportunity. I was in the studio audience. That was a ton of fun. And the show will air on May 21st. I'm not telling you what happened. I'm only going to tell you that our kids performed very, very well. So May 21st is the day of the show on Channel 5, the Academic Challenge team. And congratulations to our three students on the team, and then the 2 alternates who were also there. And we had some great parents in the studio audience, too. It was just a lot of fun. Also, Board of Education, just earlier this week, I videotaped our March Twinsburg Schools Today show. And featured on this show for the month of March are our 4 wonderful Twinsburg High School students who participated in the Cleveland Clinic's programs. Both Alex Kinzer and Brianna Gerard were here last board meeting, and they were the 2 artists that received the Cleveland Clinic Expressions Art Awards, as well as our 2 interns, Caitlin Kretz and Chris Mai. And I'm featuring all 4 on the March show. So they are just a delight to talk to, very, very bright, very, very talented, and they have a lot of thoughts about life at the high school, advice for the incoming freshmen, and what they're going to be doing after graduation. So it's a great show. Tune in to our cable channel for the Twinsburg Schools Today show. Finally, a great big thank you to our Twinsburg Vocal Music Boosters for their support of last weekend's North Coast Show Choir Invitational. It was a phenomenal day, and thanks to the efforts of the students and our boosters, our Great Expectations Show Choir will actually be traveling to Los Angeles in just a few weeks to compete in a national show choir invitational competition. So we wish Great Expectations well. We thank our Twinsburg Vocal Music Boosters for their outstanding support, and we look forward to hearing great things from California just in a couple of weeks. So that's all of our news for right now, Board of Education. At this time, I'd like to ask Mrs. Johnson to come forward. I understand we have a great number of Bissell students who are here to celebrate some outstanding accomplishments from our 2nd and 3rd grade. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this cold, cold night. But we're here to celebrate, and we're going to warm you up a little bit with our celebrations of our 2nd and 3rd graders. And you'll see those smiles on their faces, and it'll warm your heart as they come up when your name is called. But at Samuel Bissell Elementary School, our Students of the Month, our Students of the Month program recognizes outstanding student achievement at the 2nd and 3rd grade levels. The focus of this recognition program is on citizenship, academics, social, civic, volunteer, and other accomplishments that set these students apart from their peers. So at this time, we will proudly acknowledge the positive accomplishments of the following students. The students, when I call your name, come up to the front, please. We're going to start with Alessandra Bravo from Mrs. Conrad's class. Elliot Adelheit from Mrs. Doyle's class. Alyssa Kimbo from Miss Jolly's class. Amaya Thomas from Mrs. Springer's class. And these are our 2nd graders. If we have any of our 2nd grade teachers in the audience, can you please come forward? Come on up, Mrs. Doyle. I see you. And now for our 3rd grade students, Michelle Cardamone from Mrs. Rowetters' class. Sophia Harsa from Miss Kiliani's class. Emily Krajicirik from Miss Kiliani's class. Landon Withers, written from Mrs. Gasson. And if we have any of our 3rd grade teachers in the audience, if you can come forward.
If we can give these students a round of applause. Congratulations for Student of the Month. Nice smiles, everyone, so you get your picture taken from your parents. Nice smiles. Don't those smiles just warm your heart? Absolutely. Great job. Congratulations, students. At this time, I would like to share with you some nominations for Staff of the Month. At this time, I would like Mr. Jeremy Delarusso to come to the front, please. And it says, I would like to nominate Mr. Delarusso for Teacher of the Month at Samuel Bissell Elementary School. Mr. D loves to share his ideas and materials with everyone. His love for literature is evident in many of his lessons as he connects stories and their themes in his daily teaching. One recent example, which goes without being unnoticed, is when Mr. D went out of his way to make a connection with one of my second grade students. By the way, Mr. D teaches third grade. So he made a connection with the second grade student that invited him to attend the stone soup tasting. You'll hear about that a little bit later. So Mr. D attended the soup tasting during this particular student's scheduled time, and then he followed up with a letter. The letter was personal in that it thanked the student for the invitation and made connections to another version of stone soup, which we did not read. The humor Mr. D used throughout the letter was thoroughly enjoyed by the student. I want to thank Mr. D for being that teacher, the one that makes a difference in the lives of our students. Thank you. Our next Staff of the Month is Ms. Wortman. Ms. Wortman, if you can come to the front. And it says, I would like to nominate Brittany Wortman because Ms. Wortman is always very accommodating to her collaborating teachers. She is flexible with schedule changes and activities, and she is willing to adjust things to make a situation better for both the teacher and the students. Ms. Wortman shares ideas and she asks for others' opinions as planning and grade level meetings. She works to create meaningful, hands-on activities for students that not only separate their individual needs, but also connects to the themes or topics within the second grade classrooms. It has been great working with Ms. Wortman this school year. Congratulations. And our last Staff of the Month, but certainly not least, is Mrs. Mode. Is she here? Here she is. Mrs. Mode. And it says, I would like to nominate Mrs. Mode for Staff of the Month. She has been beyond helpful this year. Yes, she has. As a first-year teacher at Bissell, some of the new technology processes have been slightly confusing, and I know that I can always count on Mrs. Mode. Not only does she fix or answer the current question, but she really makes sure that I am understanding what she is doing and why she is doing it, which will help me in the future. So I want to say a special thank you for Mrs. Mode for being such a great teacher to all of our students, both young and old. Congratulations. Once again, Staff of the Month for Samuel Bissell Elementary. So before I move on and give the mic back to Mrs. Powers, I would like to invite Mrs. Magyar to come to the front and share some building highlights. Mrs. Magyar doesn't know I'm going to say this, but I am. She's our first video star, so let me tell you a little bit about it. If you go to our Bissell website under Video Resources, you will find our first video clip. So Mrs. Magyar is our first video star. And what she did was she did a video clip explaining to parents how to do a reading strategy at home by making a whisper phone. So if you take the time to go on the website, on the Bissell website, look under Video Resources, you'll see Mrs. Magyar at her best. She did a great job, and I think it's a helpful resource that can be used at home. So at this time, Mrs. Magyar, if you can come on up to the front.
Tina Maker. I'm a reading teacher, second grade reading teacher at Bristol. And I'm here with 7 of our second grade friends, if you guys would like to join me out there, who volunteered to showcase their great reading skills this evening for you. And before we do that, we're going to share a few things about what we did this month. We started off with one story of Stone Soup, and it graduated to four different versions. We read a version from China. We read a version from anyone else? We read a French version, thanks. Any others? We listened to a Russian version of a lunch aide who was born and raised in Russia. She was able to come in and share a course with us, which is a version of Stone Soup. We read one from Old England and a modern version. And one of the activities that we did was compare and contrast the similarities and differences among the folktales, which were mostly based on their lives at the time. Does anyone want to share with our audience something that was similar among all the versions?
They all had stones in the soup.
They all had stones in the soup. They all included sharing. Sharing is a basic theme among all the stories that we read. Anyone else? How about something that was different in the story?
Stones, like 2 of them had one had 3 stones.
3 stones, another had 1 stone. Yeah. Every story had a certain number of travelers that came to the town. A few of the stories had 1 traveler, some like one had 2, and I think 2 of them had 3 travelers.
Yeah.
And basically, they all came to town. If you're not familiar with the folk, they were a little tired, a little hungry, and they wanted to be fed, and all the townspeople said they had no food. So their job was to convince the townspeople that they could make soup from a stone. Right? Can't see that. Soup from a stone. So they convinced all the people in town to bring what they had and put it in the pot, and they all shared and had a wonderful meal, went home full and happy, and realized that soup could be made from a stone. Right? Yeah. So this just highlights some of the other activities that we did. We invited several of our teachers to attend our stone soup tasting. We advertised the event with different dry erase boards. We read poems. We did a reader's theater. On the poems, we created our own stanzas to the poems. We added our own. They learned about stanzas to poems. We also created our own stone soup recipes. So they're hoping that when they bring them home, their parents are actually going to allow them to try the stone soup version with some of the ingredients that they actually enjoy. So with that being said, I have 7 of our second grade friends here who are going to share with you the poem called Stone Soup. Ready?
Stone soup. Heat some water in a pot. Add a stone, you scrub it black. Sprinkle pepper, salt, and herbs. Let it boil undisturbed. Drop in carrots, onions too. Let the soup heat through and through. Stir in milk to make it sweet. Add potatoes for a treat. Toss in ham buns, let it stew. Let it bubble, let it brew. Taste the soup, and when it's done, share some soup with everyone.
Boys and girls, Stone Soup is one of my favorite children's literature books. And as a second grade teacher, we used to read that book and do summer activities. So it's so much fun to hear what you did with the story with Mrs. Magyar. Mrs. Magyar, thank you for being here this evening and sharing some exciting things going on over at Samuel Bissell Elementary School. So now we'd like to ask Mr. Reese to come forward because we have some exciting things happening at our middle school too, and lots of middle school students to celebrate as well.
Good evening, everyone, and we're going to start tonight with our 8th grade Students of the Month. And first we have Alyssa Willis. Next we have Miles Little. Aaliyah Bridges. The middle schoolers aren't as brave as the kids in Bissell. They get scared. William Corbin. Eva Tatarko. Roman Schaefer. Jasmine Maribel. And the reason we usually do 7th grade first and then 8th grade, but I knew Carter was at a basketball game, and so we were hoping he'd make it in time for his presentation, and he just walked in. Carter Lyota. And we'll give everyone some time to take some pictures. All right, how about one last round of applause for our students of the month, and you can head to your seats. We've had a busy month, and certainly being in middle school is a lot more than just academics. I thought we had a very special month. There was a focus on social isolation during the last month. We had our first, what we call Say Hello Week, and we had several events during the week. The kids had a PowerPoint that they saw in their language arts classes about social isolation. We also had a great speaker. I spoke to the kids in the assembly for a day. It was riveting and life-changing for them. And probably the most powerful event we did was a Mix It Up at lunch, where the kids came in and they got numbers. They had to sit at a table with different kids they don't usually sit with, and they had prompts to lead discussions, and we had some of our building leader, our student leaders at different tables to help lead those discussions. And then we had some follow-up to that the next day in our PE classes. And I thought it was a very powerful week for them. And kind of coincided with that, Mrs. Hoffman, who's our parent mentor, started a game club after school. And the game club has special education students come and attend, and with them are what we call their typical peers, some of our regular education student leaders, and they help model social behaviors for them, and they play video games, board games, and all kinds of things. And it's really grown over the course of just 1 month. And it's really great to see a very diverse group of kids who don't usually interact with each other working together. So that was, to me, a real highlight, not just of the month, but really of our school year, some of the activities that we did last month. Athletics, we celebrated the end of our winter season with our Spirit Week, which the kids really love. Especially we had the student versus staff basketball game. I hit a 3, just in case anyone else. Just want to mention that was another highlight for me. But our kids had a great winter season. 8th grade, boys and girls both won their tournaments. Our 8th grade boys team finished undefeated. They were featured on the Channel 5 News. And our wrestlers won several tournaments, finished in the top 3 in several tournaments, and including the 4th place finish in the TAB tournament, which is the premier middle school wrestling event in the area. So they did very well. Our Power of the Pen team just competed at Kent State, and Deepti Naruka came home with the top prize, I have to read this one, the Jane Hart Memorial Award for Excellence in Writing. So that was, we're very proud of Deepti for her accomplishments and all of our writers. And last night was our band concert. We had an orchestra benefit concert the week before. We have a choir benefit concert coming up. So our students are very busy and accomplishing a lot over the last month, and we're very proud of them and really had a memorable month at RBC. Thank you.
And Board of Education, one more thing about the middle school. You know that a couple of weeks back we had special guests addressing our families about making choices. We had Sheriff Barry and members of the Twinsburg Police Department initially during the day address members of the freshman and sophomore class. I wanted to let you know that we have made arrangements for our Twinsburg Police Department to go to the middle school on March 24th. They are going to be addressing the 7th grade and the 8th grade about making good choices when it comes to social media. So we appreciate Chief Noga helping us to organize that, and Mr. Reese for accommodating their schedule. That's March 24th, and we look forward to a really good presentation to our middle school students. And Mr. Felber, that concludes our comments for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers. Congratulations, Bissell and Chamberlain. You can go home, or you're welcome to stay all night if you'd like for the meeting, but I kind of think you want to go. So.
I don't think we do.
Minutes of class.
Because we'll be at the mic.
No, Mark's going to do it. I don't see anything. Mark's going to do it. All right, we're back, and we're at the point of committee reports, and I'll note that the policy committee has a meeting at 9 a.m. on March 7th at the board office. And I'll ask my colleagues, I know we have a report from CVCC, but any of the other committees, anything to report?
Not the same.
Okay, and then, so I know it says Mr. Steve Shebeck, but Mr. Mark Curtis is also on the CVCC board and is its president. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You're going to stand over there? You're gonna... Yeah, you can stand.
I think I want to sit here.
You can sit there.
Yeah, I know the view from there, so I think I'm going to try this route. Yeah, I just recently got an update from Mr. Shebeck, and unfortunately he's not going to be able to make it, so I'm going to pinch hit for him. We did meet on the 25th at the CC, our regular board meeting, and so since we got the video up, I'll start with that. We actually had a couple of our students, one of which was Logan Pawlowski, who's a senior here at Twinsburg, and he put together this video that he did for his senior project, and so we wanted to make sure that we provided an opportunity for you guys to see it and see what's going on at the CVCC.
You don't have to be a man to be an engineer. CVCC held a program for sophomore girls called Discover Engineering. Girls came from the 8 districts CVCC serves to learn about career opportunities, talk to professionals, and do different hands-on activities. CVCC Community Liaison Darden Blake explains why it is just for girls.
We in the Career Development Department applied for a small grant from Cleveland State University, Washington College of Engineering, and we decided to focus on 10th grade girls because females are underrepresented in engineering.
Independent sophomore Sophie Pio enjoyed hearing from the professionals.
I like that there is like that panel that we just did. I think the perspective of older versus younger and the different companies and different fields. I think that's engineering is definitely a viable option. It shouldn't make it, because it's male dominant, it shouldn't deter them from trying to be an engineer. I think that it's definitely something to still go for.
CVCC Career Development plans to continue with this program for years to come. Allie Dunhagen, CVCC Connect.
Where do you go for classic fine dining? Where do you go for a new student-based experience? The Valley Inn Restaurant, located in the heart of Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, is the place to be. A vast variety of different foods, including delicious sandwiches and entrees made by the 2016 culinary class, we're eager to work in the field. Don't believe us? Come try it for yourself. Open Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays from 11:30 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Questions? Call 440-746-8203.
The alternative energy industry is expanding, and CVCC students are working together to get the training they need to meet the demands for slow workers. The architectural and mechanical design class drew up plans for an energy park that the electrical and alternative energy program will build. Electrical and alternative energy instructor Irene Ward says it will be a place that students in the community can go to learn about energy.
It has now become that the whole area now, we would like to encompass it, make it an area where we would like students like you. Maybe you want to come out and do your film. Maybe you want to come out and have a picnic here. But you get to learn about renewable energy, you open up the house, you learn about energy efficiency, you do all of these things that learn and environment in the community.
Ward believes that projects like this are essential for the student's success.
It is beneficial to the students, absolutely, because then the students get real world. Instead of having to do a simulation or a mock-up or a test case or anything like this, they can see it go from their earth to an entire finished product that they can be extremely boasting and proud of.
Senior Jack Martin enjoys working on the energy park.
I think it's really cool just because getting that hands-on experience is sort of a hard thing to get, and having such a friendly, accessible environment and just sort of having it be relaxed. I'm not going to big monstrous wind tower and I'm afraid to make mistakes here. I feel safe about learning.
They hope to have the energy park completed by spring of 2016. Logan Kowalski, CVCC Connect.
The majority of cars sold today come with open wheels, which means the calipers are exposed to the elements, making them highly vulnerable to unsightly surfaces. So UCX created the Black Medallion Caliper, which has a robust, corrosion-resistant coating with an attractive black finish. The Black Medallion coating molecularly bonds with the caliper, which, unlike powder coating, will not degrade, bubble, or blister over time. Now with Black Medallion, you can get attractive, corrosion-resistant calipers that are built to last.
I'd like to thank my co-host Mandy and all the students of the Media Technology class for making this show possible. I'm Dr. Robot. See you next time on CBCC Connect.
So that was done by our students at CVCC, and it was a project that Logan did, but it's pretty indicative of a lot of the things that are going on at the center, and the quality of that, we were blown away. And the UCX piece, they actually the students did that, that's a real commercial that our kids did. So I was extremely impressed with that. Some other notables in that video, the house with the solar panels on it, the kids built that. They built that from the ground up, and they actually utilize that as to get data based on kind of measuring the energy and some other things that I'm probably sure I'm not really doing justice. I just know that I got a tutorial on it, and there's a lot that went into constructing that, and they utilize that on a daily basis, to measure, to get metrics and things like that. So the only other piece with respect to what was in there is the culinary piece. I got a kick out of the restaurant deal, but it is a real restaurant, and the kids run it. They cook all the food, and a lot of our students here at Twinsburg participate in the culinary arts program, and they have received numerous awards, too many for me to name, and a lot of those kids go on to do some great things. So I wanted to highlight that. The other thing is that last time that Steve was up here, he did an update on a board docs program that we at the CVCC we're going to begin to use, and it pretty much kind of gets rid of the paper aspects of kind of what we have up here right now, going through the board process of approving things and, you know, yay or nay and so forth. Well, it's all electronic. So we actually test drove it at the last meeting, and everything went smoothly. So it's pretty easy to use. We still use paper, but it does eliminate a lot of things and makes things easier. So we were able to get that done. Also mentioned the last time Steve was here that the CVCC entered into an agreement with the Brecksview Broadview Heights City School District, a shared services agreement for treasury services, where we actually voted on and approved that at our last board meeting. And it really works out for us because it works out for us from just from having the work done, but also we save a lot of money because we're sharing these services. And so on the CVCC end of things, we're saving over $100,000 a year by going with shared services and working collaboratively with the Brecksview Broadview Heights School District. So that's a good thing. The other piece is that our students and the center were also featured on Channel 3. And there's a link. If you go to WKYC TV and go to the links, it'll you'll actually be able to see the feature that they did. They actually came out to the center and toured the facility and did some highlights there. So we're getting a lot of exposure in that regard. And last but not least, Vision 8 meeting, which we have with all of our participating districts throughout the year, once a year. So Twinsburg's is coming up on the 16th, I believe, at the Kent State campus. And what we typically do is we engage the business leaders in the city, and we kind of give them an update on what's going on with the center and try and gauge what the needs are in the business community so that we can make sure that we're doing things from a programmatic standpoint that serve the best interest of the business community. And we also seek and solicit feedback for some things, programs that if we don't have them, some things that we might want to implement and do at the center to make sure that we're staying abreast of what the demand is out there. That concludes my update for the CVCC. Any questions?
No, just a comment. Many meals at the Valley Inn, and never had a bad one. It's nice to see our actual Twinsburg students front of the house and back of the house. So we've thanked them on many occasions. I believe there was no other committee reports. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mrs. Powers, for the administrative reports.
Thank you, Mr. Felber. Well, we're going to begin administrative reports with a great big celebration. Last week, we heard from the Ohio Department of Education about the final designation for Wilcox Primary School. And so I'm not going to share the great news. I'm going to ask Ms. Villa to come forward and to share with you exactly what kind of celebration we're having and why we're having it. And then Mr. Asti and the staff are here as well to provide some details. So welcome, Ms. Villa.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, our preschool team is here to present to you some information about the Step Up to Quality system and what the process we went through for this designation. We are very proud to bring home a 5-star rating, which is the highest rating possible, and it is a very new process that school districts and community preschools are going through, so it's new for everyone, and we're happy that we start out with the highest rating. Tonight I wanted to introduce you to introduce you to our preschool team. I'm going to read the names of everybody that is on there just so that they can all be recognized, but we do have several of our team here tonight. So if you hear your name, please go ahead and stand up. Of course, Scott and I are thrilled to be able to work with teachers and instructional aides and district administrators to make this all possible. So our teachers, we have Karen Turpak, and she's here, and Nicole Ryder, and Jenny Farrow. And working with them are Vicki Kerwin, Ann Allard, and Kathy Bender. Vicki Robbins is our school psychologist. Robin Gelwasser is our speech pathologist. Terry Bissell works with our children as an occupational therapist. Diane Crockett is our physical therapist. And of course, Denise Trapphagen and Marvetta Moorman support us through central office and working with all of our students with disabilities. So I'm very proud to have them all here with us tonight. I do have to... I do have to recognize Scott Astie, our assistant principal. He has really taken a leadership role in this process. He works so closely with our preschool staff every single day, and he has become somewhat of an expert on Step Up to Quality, so much so that Scott has presented at the Summit County ESC, and this month we'll be presenting at the Cuyahoga County ESC about the Step Up to Quality, because as I shared, there will be a lot of school districts going through this process in this school year. So now that we have gone through it and have our official rating, Scott is sharing the information that we have learned. So I'm going to back up to here and tell you a little bit about what Step Up to Quality is all about. Ohio was an early adopter of a tiered rating system, that is it's a rating system and an improvement plan for licensed child care providers. Ohio is one of 35 states that have some type of a tiered system that we are using. Back in December of 2011, as part of the Race to the Top and Early Learning Challenge Grant, Ohio made a commitment to revise the current tiered system and broaden the participation so that this way it was including school districts, child care programs, community preschools like Your Head Starts, Goddard, KinderCare, and even family child care providers. And it is definitely a joint effort, and you can see up there that it involves the Ohio Department of Education, Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, and the Child Care Resource and Referral Association. The goal of Step Up to Quality is to have a standardized definition of what quality really means. And so in this framework really includes all program types. It makes sure that the process is measurable, that it's easy to understand, and that it's flexible enough so that the different types of child care programs that are out there, preschool programs and daycare centers, can all reach a high standard of achievement and still have their unique program that they're providing. Step Up to Quality. I think if you've been around a while, especially in the preschool world, you might remember prior to Step Up to Quality, ODE-funded preschool programs participated in a continuous improvement process we called IMPACT. IMPACT is an acronym that stands for Integrated Monitoring Process and Continuous Improvement Tool. And it was a big document that we would produce every year, looking at our program, setting up goals, and making sure that we were basically auditing ourselves internally, and we would present that to ODE. Well, Step Up to Quality changes that process. Starting in 2012, with the passage of House Bill 487 and Senate Bill 316, the Step Up to Quality process started developing a rating and a continuous improvement framework. How this works is that all learning development programs that receive funding from the ODE or ODJFS are required to participate in Step Up to Quality. And this is a 5-star rating program, which I have those 5 stars up there for you. It's giving a defined continuum of what increasing quality is. So basically, programs have to meet all the standards in one level before they can progress on to the next level. And as you know, we met all 5 of those. So we went through everything had to happen for level 1, everything for 2, for 3, all the way up to 5. The purpose of the Step Up to Quality system really is to define what quality is. It's a system of accountability for sure, program for outreach and support so that there's training for the staff and the teachers. There are financial incentives that are linked to compliance with the quality standards like scholarship opportunities. And it's also to educate and support parents so that they can make some informed decisions about the early child education for their particular children. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Astie, who's going to tell you more about the actual process that our school went through.
Thank you, Ms. Villa, Board of Education, Mrs. Powers. Step Up to Quality really analyzes three main domains, as you could see: learning and development, administrative and leadership practices, and family and community partnerships. The learning and development component of it really looked and analyzed our curriculum and the teachers' assessments within the classroom and how they shape and develop that. The administrative and leadership practices really went over us as administrators, how we're observing our teachers and working with them to make them better, more influential for the students, what professional development we're holding our teachers to and promoting, and what staff supports that we as a district have put in place for our teachers and staff members as well. The final domain, the family and community partnerships, really addresses what we're doing to transition preschool students to kindergarten to make sure they're kindergarten ready, what family engagement models that we have for our community and our families, and our community resources, how we're tapping into our library, the Emergency Assistance Center, and other programs to help support students' needs. When looking at the overall Step Up to Quality process, there is a profound connection between what the teachers are doing, what the classroom is required to do, and the program, and I'd like to take a moment just to share each of these cogs with you. It's such an intricate part is how it fits together to educate our students. Our teachers throughout the Step Up to Quality process were required to demonstrate what they're doing through the OTES model in regards to self-assessment and student achievement, how they're structuring their professional development, and how they're creating their assessment and action plans. Ultimately, how are they formulating instruction and what they're using to do that as their tools. Looking at students' needs and transition plans, creating goals with the families as an intricate member, and compiling and holding on to evidence that supports all of those areas. Those were just some of the responsibilities for the teachers and assistants through the Step Up to Quality process. As far as the classroom model goes, we needed to make sure each classroom had the early learning and development standards. They had a set curriculum, and they were using the curriculum in each of the curricular domains every day in their classroom. That the assessments are aligned to meet the needs of each of those domains to measure student growth and progress, as well as look at the assessment model for that individual classroom and where there's some possible opportunities of improvement. And again, within each classroom, they're to organize and compile their evidence supporting each of those cogs. Finally, Step Up to Quality looked at the overall program supports. We needed to make sure that we had health and developmental screenings and we met those requirements. We had a self-assessment tool that analyzed the entire program and how it's functioning and meeting the needs of the community and our students. Those staff and support wages, community agreements with other local preschool agencies, the Emergency Assistance Center, the library. Also how we're reaching out to parents and other stakeholders to get feedback from them. Are we meeting the requests, the needs of the community? The health screening provides supports and those resources, that family engagement model, and finally completing continuous improvement goals from each of those aspects with the information we received from the staff, from the program assessment tool, from the teachers' self-assessment surveys, their OTES evaluations, as well as parent and stakeholder surveys. All of those things together really tied into student success and how we bring it all together to make informed instruction. I'd like to welcome up here Ms. Turpek. She's one of the intervention specialists, preschool teachers, and she's just going to reflect for a moment on how this has impacted and made a great change in her classroom.
Thank you. I think the thing that going through Step Up to Quality did the most for us as a staff is that it reaffirmed the fact that we have always thought we were an excellent program, but this has just reaffirmed to us that the Twinsburg City Schools does have an excellent preschool program. Going through this process has allowed the staff to engage in various professional development and collaboration activities which help us to improve the quality of instruction in the classroom by making it more focused and differentiated. We were able to identify specific learning targets for students, which has increased our ability to fill gaps and implement learning strategies that address these academic needs. And on a daily basis, we've been able to focus on promoting and developing activities and interactions that meet quality program standards which revolve around appropriate child development learning progressions. We're very proud of this accomplishment, and we're only able to achieve it because of the collaboration between parents, administration, and all of our staff, including our support staff that works with our children every day. And we will continue to strive to provide this level of excellence in the years of future years.
Of course, we couldn't do it alone. The parents have a huge role in this as well. Just to help support, I'd like to invite Mr. Eric Lengacher. He'll tell you a little bit more about it himself, but he had one student who had gone through our preschool program and another currently in it, so I'll turn it over to him. Thank you.
All right, good evening. Again, my name is Eric Lengacher. My wife, Allison, desperately wanted to be the one to convey this message of gratitude. She had a previous commitment, so I will do my best to fill in for her. Let's see. Why Wilcox? Well, first of all, I'd back up briefly, as Mr. Asti said, 2 boys who've gone through the program, one who's now in 1st grade, Sam, who's 7. Josh is finishing up his last few months with Miss Turpak and Miss Curran, can't believe it, and yes, I'll tell you a little bit about both of their experiences, different, but both very positive. I'm going to, first, why Wilcox? We had heard good things about the program. We wanted our oldest son, Sam, to be able to have empathy for students who might have special needs, for him to be able to be kind and accepting of others, and not that he wasn't kind and accepting already, but we wanted to maintain that opportunity, and we had heard good things. So we had Sam enrolled in that. I'm going to jump down to the bottom one. Even though Sam was with, among other students with some academic challenges, he was still challenged quite well academically. He was very well prepared for kindergarten. They transitioned him into kindergarten. He visited with his teacher that he was going to be with the next year. He had time to eat lunch in the cafeteria during his preschool year, and also got to spend time in the kindergarten classroom. So the transition was smooth for him. And now he's in 1st grade and almost through 1st grade, and he's almost smarter than me, so he's thriving very well. Then I'll jump up to the next to the last one. How's Wilcox provided early intervention and classroom experience? So then there's our younger son, who, Josh, he's a handful. He's still a handful. But we couldn't exactly leave the house with him. He had lots of spontaneous outbursts and all sorts of social and emotional issues, and so we had him evaluated, and it turns out he needed an IEP and some services, so he got to experience the other end of the benefits of the preschool. Ms. Turpak and Ms. Kerwin have been working with him almost 2.5 years, and the progress has been incredible, to say the least. We now can leave the house and go places with him. He can be part of a soccer team and follow the rules in a soccer practice. We can leave him with other people and not have to worry about him. So they really enlightened us to his issues with processing delays and how that affected everything else, and how we could help him with that at home, and how they were helping him with that at school. And we're very confident for his readiness for kindergarten next year. So Ms. Turpak and Ms. Kerwin, they're miracle workers, to say the least. Let's see. I will jump up to the second one now, parent and teacher communication. We always got communication sent home on a notebook, what they had done that day, things they had learned, activities they participated in, so then we as parents had an opportunity to ask our kids, well, what did you do today, or what was this all about, and what's Ms. Turpak talking about here, and how did you guys interact with that? So there's constant daily communication there. Parent involvement, my wife had many opportunities to participate in field trips, come in and read at times. several other different opportunities, and our favorite one was the rodeo. We got one more rodeo coming up here, where all the preschoolers get to perform various rodeo entertainment for the parents, and that's a big social gathering and a lot of fun. So yeah, obviously our two boys have seen both benefits on both ends. My oldest son Sam is a peer model, my youngest son Josh receiving services. So I again just thank you to the whole staff. I know they work together as a team. Ms. Robbins, the psychologist, and all the teachers, and your dedication is being recognized tonight, and you deserve that. And we are forever grateful. Thank you.
Just to take a step back through the Step Up to Quality timeline, we originally received notification the 2013-14 school year that there was going to be the Step Up to Quality initiative that we need to go through. In 2014-15, we began compiling the evidence that we needed, combing through the 75-page guidance document on the requirements, and started really the preparation. It was the summer of 2015 when I really sat down, combed through it, created guidance checklists, and really disseminated who's going to do what, because administratively one person cannot take it on all themselves. It needed to be a joint effort. 2015 we created a timeline, and we created a professional development plan really focused around Step Up to Quality, mapping out the school year and some of the PLC and staff development times. On September 20th, however, we received our registration application letter saying it was go time, and we had 30 days to submit our original registration requirements, which was basically consisting of an application and then 26 pieces of evidence to upload, samples from the classroom and what we were doing administratively to support the program. On October 22nd, that registration was submitted and all those documents were uploaded. December 10th, what they called the desk review was completed, where they combed through all the information to make sure it aligned with the registration questions and to achieve the rating level that we were originally applying for. It did come back. We had one revision, which was very unlikely from what we had heard from a lot of other private schools, and there are two schools in Summit County who had previously gone through the Step Up to Quality process. Just having one revision was something remarkable within itself. Many schools had several revisions to do. So we completed that revision, submitted it by December 18th, which was just before winter break. And then Thursday when we come back, January 7th, the ODE unexpectedly showed up for their licensing audit as well as Step Up to Quality review. On site, there were two specialists from the Ohio Department of Education who conducted a licensing review. They observed two of the classroom teachers. They then followed that up with staff interviews of those teachers about why they were doing the things that they were doing in the classroom. They reviewed students' documents and evidence to support the Step Up to Quality rating as well as licensing requirements, and really just to verify what we said in the registration and the evidence we uploaded was actually in practice. On February 26th, like Mrs. Powers said just this past Friday, we received our final on-site summary as well as our 5-star rating. Step Up to Quality, that's the official 5-star emblem at the top there. Really meaning with 5 stars, we have low staff-child ratios. Our administrators and teachers are being held to high qualifications and standards. Our teachers and administration are completing professional development to stay current and up to date in the most recent trends and legalese of preschool and special ed. That our teachers are developing lesson plans that support the growth of the whole child and each child, not just one group of children, but individual students along the way. And that we continue to complete and assess our teachers and our practice, and that we involve the families and the communities in this whole process. Moving forward, from now, continuing what we're doing, while continuing looking for areas of improvement and opportunity there. Our current 5-star rating is good for 3 years. However, each year we do need to submit evidence of annual reviews to maintain that funding and that status, which consists of the following: assessment plans, CIP goals, observations, that we're continuing those professional development hours, and we're continuing to engage our family. Just like to thank the Twinsburg City School Board of Education, Mrs. Powers, for their support, their resources, and really, you kind of see how the whole big picture fits together there with a very student-centered approach. And just like to thank everyone involved to making this possible. We couldn't have done it without the support of the school, the communities, and the teachers and staff. So, thank you.
Mr. Assey, I'd just like to comment, and wow, what an effort from an administrative report, very thorough. I'm tired just listening to all the work that you had to do, but that's quite an honor, and the fact that you're also taking your Tiger Stripes out to other districts, as many other educators have done at the Ohio School Board Association and so forth. You're just continuing to spread the goodwill that is Twinsburg, and congratulations to all of you. This is quite a program.
Thank you.
And I also have a comment. I have friends who have had children go through that program, and they've had nothing but good things to say about the teachers and the staff and everybody working together, and felt their children were very well prepared for kindergarten. And I got to read to the preschool class yesterday and saw them in the rodeo gear, and I'm sure some of those kids have challenges, just of being a preschooler. And I was so impressed with the way they just were very attentive, and I'd ask questions from the book, and they were raising their hands and taking their turns to answer. And some, as some 3, 4, 5-year-olds will do, eager to shout out, but they were attentive, they were listening, and they were engaged, and I was just very impressed. Second year I got to read to the preschoolers, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Step Up to Quality, but I have to agree with the staff that it's really not a shock that we did well as a district. But this is a pretty comprehensive, integrated approach to early childhood, and it's a great acknowledgement of all of the good work that's going on, and I'm really proud, that we got the 5-star rating. 2. There was mentioned that you would be presenting at the Cuyahoga County ESC. I'd like to know when that is.
There's 2 dates, actually. The first one's this Friday afternoon, and the other one is March 17th in the morning.
Okay.
I believe it starts at 9 a.m.
You may see me.
Okay.
Well done, though.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think the ball's still to you.
Well, I want to, again, thank Ms. Villa and Mr. Asti and the entire staff at Wilcox Primary School, and all those folks are supported by Denise Trapphagen and Marvetta Mormon through their work with the Department of Pupil Services. We know you do great things, but to have the designation from the outside reviewer really is just another gold star to the preschool and to all of your efforts, and thank you. And I have to just say a little story. Back in December, I think it was, Ann Allard was at the board office because she was getting ready for this review, and she needed documents because they took this review process so seriously, wanting to make sure every last document needed was going to be on site because they didn't know when the external reviewers were coming. So, Ann, I was so impressed with you coming over and saying, hey, I need this, and this, and we had what she needed, and went back to the school, and then when the reviewers were there, our staff was ready to go. And they were personally driven to make sure that they were representing the preschool as best as they can, and I certainly do appreciate that. Ms. Allard.
I was impressed the way that you, Ms. Powers, and everybody in the staff got it right away. I thought it was the next day. I got it ready in 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. We're a team, right? So on behalf of the Board of Education and our families, thank you very much to the preschool for what you do every single day. You make a huge difference for these little tigers who are coming to school for the very first time, and without you, they would not be on such a steady foot moving forward. So thank you so very much. And Board of Education, if I might ask if we can have just a few minutes to mingle here before we move on to the next report, because this is a big deal for the preschool, and we just want to be able to congratulate them.
Yeah, I think we will recess the board now without a vote. Back to you.
Thank you for allowing a little bit of celebration for our preschool. I think
Well
that was-
deserved.
It's amazing. The Board of Education, the second administrative report this evening is a summary of the report card information that was released last week. And before Mrs. Farthing and Mrs. Trapphagen take over with the PowerPoint, I just wanted to couch the comments with some overview summary statements of my own. On February 25th, 2016, the Ohio Department of Education released the second portion of the data for the local report card for the 14-15 school year. This portion includes measures for performance indicators, performance index, annual measurable objectives, AMO, also known as gap closing, and value added. Recall that the ODE released the data for K-3 literacy and graduation ratings for the 4- and 5-year cohorts in January. This evening, we will present a summary of the information released last week about the second portion of the local report card data. Before we begin, however, I want to make a few comments about the next generation assessments, also known as PARC and AIR. Recall, Board of Education, that the 2014-15 school year was the first year that these assessments were implemented. Districts were told by the Ohio Department of Education that the assessments would be more rigorous due to the new rigorous learning standards implemented in our classrooms. Furthermore, remember that the Ohio Department of Education 3 years ago now asked school districts to complete the technology audit known as the Technology Readiness Tool, or TRT, so that the department could gauge districts' readiness for the online testing platform. Due to the fact that our district has been progressive in securing technology for our schools, our school district was prepared to test online as recommended by the department. Students at Dodge through Twinsburg High School completed the state assessments online, while we made the decision to allow students at Bissell to complete both the math and reading assessment using paper and pencil. With regard to the use of the online assessments, it's now apparent with the recently released results that the tests completed online were very different than those completed with pencil and paper. You will be most interested to note the examples Mrs. Farthing will provide in her comments this evening. But to suffice it to say, a survey of area school districts which gathered information about online testing versus pencil and paper testing and the test scores for these districts clearly indicates that the results are not an apple-to-apple comparison. This is very concerning given the fact the districts were encouraged by the department to test our students online. That leaves me asking then, with such a difference in the test questions, how can the ODE compare school districts' performance given the fact that some tested online while others tested with pencil and paper? The 2014-15 school year was also unique with unprecedented political currents generated by opposition to the new learning standards and the implementation of the new state assessments. Additionally, some parents were concerned about how student performance data gleaned from the new state assessments would be captured and who would have access to that data. Unfortunately, the events of last school year led to some of our highest performing students, more than 100 students, or approximately 5% of the population of students in the tested grade bands, being opted out of the state assessments. It is unfortunate that this very personal decision made by our parents has repercussions to the manner in which our district's performance is being calculated by the ODE, even though I have attempted, as you know, Board of Education, in vain to convince our legislators to provide relief through a safe harbor for the school district for the 14-15 school year. Current statute mandates that the scores of students who are opted out of the state assessments are counted as failures in the schools and district's performance index, otherwise known as PI. The Twinsburg City School District's performance index indicates that the impact from the opted-out assessments reduces the points our district earned from 100.2 to 96.5. On February 9th, 2016, the Ohio Department of Education released the following statement. For the 2014-15 report card only, the department will be sharing additional information on Ohio school report cards regarding the impact of student participation. The department will share a model of modified achievement measure score and grade, which will be calculated using a similar method to the performance index and include only students who participated in state tests. Unfortunately, the Ohio Department of Education did not clearly communicate the manner in which they would share this modified achievement measure and grade. Therefore, they have added to the concern and confusion in this year's report card, or I should say last year's report card. Also, with regard to the manner in which opted-out students are calculated in our local report card measures, the data released last week indicates that our district's grade for annual measurable objectives was demoted by 1 full letter grade as the district's participation rate for the subgroup white students is less than 95%, and more specifically at 94.7% in reading and 94.2% in mathematics due to the manner in which the opted-out students are calculated as failures. Additionally, the annual measurable objective grade for George G. Dodge Intermediate School with students in grades 4 through 6 was demoted by 1 full letter grade as the participation rates for the subgroups all students, economically disadvantaged students, and white students are less than 95%. Finally, the annual measurable objective grade at R.B. Chamberlain Middle School with students in grades 7 and 8 was also demoted by 1 full letter grade as the participation rate for the subgroup white students is less than 95%. Interesting, those reports are not being submitted by the ODE or the media. I recognize that the participation rate is a federal mandate, and I also understand that Ohio public school districts will not suffer a negative financial impact when their participation rates are lower than 95% for the 14-15 school year. However, I want to share these statistics with you this evening so that you clearly understand the significant impact that counting opted-out students' scores as failures has upon our school district. Board of Education, once again, we can celebrate in our students' results in the area of performance indicators as they earned an A. You will note that the district met 32 of 33 indicators, with the indicator not met as being our gifted indicator. Mrs. Farthing will provide more about that indicator in her report of this presentation, but suffice it to say that the gifted indicator is new this year, and as such, we continue to work to understand how this information is being calculated. Finally, value added. The results are very disappointing, but I do not think they are necessarily unexpected. Recall that the Ohio Department of Education announced prior to the first administration of the new state assessments that the results would be depressed when compared to the results from the previous state assessments, given the recent implementation of the new rigorous standards. Furthermore, recall that value added calculates student growth over time. According to the department, value added analysis helps educators measure the impact schools and teachers have on students' academic progress rates from year to year. Our results are comparing our students' performance over time, but in this case between 2 different assessments, the OAA to PARCC. Because of that very fact, I question the credibility of these value-added results, as these results are not an apple-to-apple comparison of our students' growth over time. Additionally, recall that over 100 students were opted out of the state assessments last year. Those 100 students' scores are not captured in the value-added data for the 14-15 school year, and of those 100 students, 44 are identified as gifted for the grade bands tested. Finally, recall that our students transitioned from the paper and pencil testing platform to the online platform. Not all school districts did the same, even though districts with the capacity to test online were encouraged to do so by the Ohio Department of Education. Therefore, to compare one school district's value-added results against another school district's value-added results really does not tell the whole story. Last year, our gifted value-added score was noted as being one of the highest in Ohio, and if I think I remember clearly, we were the third highest in Ohio. How can it be so very different this year? The data leaves me wondering. Board of Education, the results published in this latest round of information from the Ohio Department of Education only tell part of the story. In fact, the information only tells about a day in the life of our students or a data point. I'm very proud of the fantastic work our staff does every day, as exemplified this evening by a 5-star rating from the Ohio Department of Education for our preschool. And I'm extremely proud of our students, each and every one of them. Our students continue to do great things here in the Twinsburg City School District to achieve and to thrive. Our students are performing well, regardless of what the information is being published by the department on this local report card. As Mrs. Farthing and Mrs. Trapphagen present the summary of testing information to you this evening, please keep in mind that our district's quality profile tells the story of the Twinsburg City School District, a story that is more than just about test scores. Our community values our school district. Yes, we need to pay attention to the student performance results and make adjustments accordingly. However, what is most important and what is most valued by the members of our community is what happens every day in our schools and in our classrooms to prepare our kids for success. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Mrs. Farthing and Mrs. Trapphagen to please come forward to provide a summary of the local report card.
Good evening, Board of Education. As Mrs. Powers stated, we're going to talk about the local report card release 2 that happened in February. And just so to recap from the first release, our first release had our graduation rate in our 4- and 5-year cohort for our students, and we earned an A in both the graduation rate for the 4- and 5-year cohort. And as a reminder, the 5-year cohort are the students that it takes 5 years for them, so we monitor them from 9th grade to their plus 12th year. Additionally, we received results on our Prepared for Success, which is how our high school is preparing our students for college and career readiness and beyond. As both Mr. Felber and Mrs. Powers mentioned, our K-3 literacy, we are still awaiting the appeal. We have been told that there were a lot of appeals and they're a little bit overwhelmed. So this is still pending right now. So we have not received word yet, yay or nay, on our K-3 literacy appeal. So it is still pending out there, and there should be a mark on our report card stating such. And now to talk about the information that has been released now. Our first indicator is achievement, and achievement has 2 components as part of it. And the first component of achievement is the performance index. And the performance index is a weighted measure of each of our performance levels. So our students who took each test and how they scored advanced, accelerated, proficient, limited, basic, each receive a weighted score. So that is calculated. To earn an A in performance index, you must receive a performance index of 108 or above. And there were 6 districts in the state of Ohio that earned an A. So, and we earned a B last year also. So just as a comparison point, there are 6 districts in Ohio that earned an A. Our other item in the achievement is our indicators met. And we did receive an A in indicators met. We received 32 out of 33 indicators. Now, when we started to look at this report card last Thursday when it was released, those numbers came as a slight surprise to us because a lot of the information that we received earlier had approximately 21 indicators on it. But then as we looked into it further, our high school measures were counted in this, but they're not in the report card. So in the report card copy that you have, the high school measures are not included. So Algebra 1 at the high school, Geometry, English 1, all of those are not included, but they are included in this measure here of the 32 out of 33. The 33rd measure that we weren't it's unique where they put it. I guess that's how we say it. We knew that we were going to have a gifted measure, but we didn't necessarily know that it was going to be in this indicator met portion. So this indicator portion is new this year. This is the first time it is being reported, so new for the 14-15 school year. To achieve your gifted indicator, you must meet all 3 portions. And the 3 portions of the gifted indicator are value added, that the school district, so grades 4 through 8, must earn a value added score of at least a C. The performance index, we must earn a score for these are for our gifted students that are identified, of 115. So a moment ago we talked about that you have to earn a 108 to get an A. So 150, the highest you can get in performance index is 120. So just to give you some guidelines as to what it will take us to earn a met in that category. And then the third part of the gifted indicator is they are called the gifted inputs. And the gifted inputs are 8 factors that are put together, and you need to earn 40 points in the gifted indicator. We earned 36. Examples of what the gifted indicator are, they are explained in the report card, but just for the community at home, the way you get a factor is it's students who are identified and served in the different grade bands, and then it is also broken down to how many students that we have that are a minority status that are gifted, and then it is also broken down by our disadvantaged students. So just to give you the background, that's what made up the gifted indicator, and as I said, you must meet all 3. So we know that we have some work to do in that area, and I just wanted to explain that because that is new to us. The other ones you're probably familiar with. You've heard of the AMO and you've heard of the Achievement and Performance Index, but the gifted indicator is new for the 14-15 school year. Gap closing is also sometimes referred to as AMO, which is our annual measurable objective. And what that boils down to is every student succeeding, and every student, regardless of income or race or ethnicity or disability, how is each student performing? And this category is broken down into 10 subgroups, and we get rated on how each of our subgroups did. As Mrs. Powers mentioned, this is a federal measure, and as part of this, we did receive a demotion in our AMO, and we were rated a B for the district, but due to the fact that we missed our participation rate because of the white subgroup, and that could be in reading or math. We did happen to miss it in both, but it could be, if you miss it just by, that 94.7, that would have caused our demotion. And as Mrs. Powers mentioned, each building received this as well, and we had demotions basically across the board. The next indicator is probably one of the hardest to explain, and this is the progress measure, also known as value added. And this is looking at our mathematics scores and English language arts scores in grades 4 through 8. And this is measuring how our students perform from year to year. However, we had the little caveat this year that we were comparing 2 different assessments. When I think of value added, it's confusing any year. Value added is something that's always a challenge to explain to teachers. We have been to multiple workshops on value added, and it's just, there's a lot of statistical terminology. One analogy that was given to me once was if all 5th graders in Ohio are in line for lunch based on their performance. So the following year when they're a 6th grader, are they in the same place in line? Did they perform as well as they did the year before, or did they go ahead, or did they fall behind? So that's how they've talked about looking at the students. It's comparing everyone across Ohio as well as our district, but how did they perform, and did they stay in their spot in the lunch line? It's simplistic, but that's how it was explained to me once, and I liked it. So let's see. Additionally, with this measure, per the Akron Beacon Journal, 106 districts that were rated as an A last year fell to an F this year. So we are in that 106, and that was denoted in the report that was in the Akron Beacon Journal. One other thing that is challenging with this measure for us is we received our overall scores, but we can't drill down at this point. There is a website called EVOS, which is where we're going to get the value added to watch to see how those students performed and if they stayed in their spot in the lunch line. But that website still has last year's data. They haven't, at one point in time, they've talked about the teacher value added reports will be available in April. So that's the last information we had. It's coming in the spring. But we've had a lot of questions. Our teachers want to know what happened. We want to know, everyone wants to know what happened. But it's hard because we can't drill down at this point in time. So we have numbers, but without having a name associated with it and scores associated with it, it's very challenging. So as I said, value added is hard to explain all the time. And please don't think I'm making excuses, but value added is one of the hardest things to explain. And so that's kind of the background, and we wish we could get more data at this point in time, and as soon as we can, we will. We just can't at this time. And just one other piece about the value added is when we talk about a student making a year worth of progress, if a student makes 1 year worth of progress, that is a grade of a C right off the bat. So they've made a year of progress, so good, great, but we really need the students to make more than that year of progress. So it is rated in basically by twos. So if a student makes more than 2 years worth of growth, we will get an A. If they make between 1 and 2 years of growth, we get a B. If they go down a little bit but maintain within the 1, that's a C. So just to give you that background, that a C is 1 year worth of growth. And you're thinking if we're measuring the student, you might think an A would be 1 year worth of growth, but just to make that clear as I talk with my hands, sorry, that that is how value added is weighted. Okay, again, that one is always as clear as mud when we start talking about that. So one thing we've discussed is how were things different in the 2013-14 school year and how were things different in the 2014-15 school year. And one very obvious thing is the fact that previously each test was 1 day. So our students would take a math test 1 day and they would take a science test 1 day, for example, a 5th grader, and then they would take the math test, 3 tests. But then last year, as you know, because we've talked about this, we had multiple testing windows. So we had our PBA and DOI. So at this time last year, we were right in the midst of the PBA, came back from spring break and began the EOY. So that's one thing that's different is the fact, just the amount of testing. Again, not making excuses, just want to point out some things that are markedly different for us. Last year we did, for the first time, have some parents determine that the children would not participate in the next generation assessments, PARCC/AIR. And as you just saw, that had an impact on our gap closing results, resulting in a demotion. And it impacted our performance index, and it impacted our progress measure as well. This is the example that I want to point out to you. This is an Algebra 1 paper pencil example. Now, I haven't taken Algebra 1 for a really long time.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Trying to silence it and it made noise.
I liked Algebra 1, but it's been a really long time. So this is an example of a question that is a paper pencil question. It gives you the equation and asks you how is that, show the system of inequalities, and it gives you 4 choices. If you work through that, you should be able to, if you look at that, I think I know the right answer. I worked through it today, and you should be able to narrow it down and figure out the correct answer. If you are taking it online, you are given a similar type of question, but then you are required to graph that inequality. There are multiple answers that could be correct for this, and then also you are working with different types of lines. You have your dotted line, and then you have your solid line. So a student has a greater chance of getting the answer correct on the paper pencil. We are not feeling that our students were not prepared to do the technology component of this, but our point in showing you this is just how do you compare the difference between this with having the 4 choices and then having to graph that out and work with the different types of lines that you would be required to work with. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Trapphagen for another way that the exams were different.
Good evening, Board of Education and Superintendent Powers. As you've heard both Mrs. Farley and Mrs. Powers state, in August of 2014, we as a district decided that we were going to take the state assessments by computer. In the next 3 months, after that August date, both Pupil Services and Curriculum made many trips to Columbus and to our ESCs and to our SSTs to attend workshops, because we knew that there were going to be changes in how students with disabilities were assessed on the new PARCC testing. But at that time, we didn't know what those changes were going to be. Our teachers were very frustrated because they were in the middle of trying to provide services to our students. They wanted to do the right thing, but we were not getting any kind of directions as far as what we need to put on those IEPs to accommodate our students with reading disabilities, because were not sure what was going to be told to us as far as the guidelines. In December 17th of 2014, all districts received a memo from Dr. Sue Zaig, the Director of Exceptional Children at ODE, that the guidelines for the read aloud accommodations were changed with our students for disabilities. With this change of reading with our students with disabilities in the guidelines, we now have to provide the students with a different allowable accommodation that we had in the past. Students in the past were allowed on the OAA with a reading disability to take the state assessments with a reader being able to read the directions and also the test questions. Never able to read the passage because we're testing their reading skills. With the new generation assessment of PARCC, the guidelines said that the students, in order to have it read aloud or text to speech, that the students had to be a non-reader. So what does a non-reader mean? According to the guidelines, a non-reader is a student that has trouble putting letters and sounds together, which means that if you can actually decode a word and pronounce the word, you would not qualify for this accommodation on this new PARCC test. The state also told us that there is going to be very few students that would qualify under this new guideline for a text-to-speech on the PARCC assessments. We also were told that ODE would be monitoring our amendments to the IEPs regarding the testing. They were also said that they find that students do not meet the criteria for the testing of the new testing requirements, that test would be invalid. Our district took this very seriously. And what we did was we had our teachers look at our ETRs, go back and drill down, do our kids have a decoding skill on those ETRs, and we also looked at other state assessments to see if they qualified. We also, once we got the information in December, our district, with the Pupil Services and Curriculum, sent out a memo to all our staff because they were asking, they're very frustrated because the teachers are working directly with our students and they want to do the right thing. And we told them as soon as we got the information, we would get it out to them. So our office, and along with Curriculum, sent a memo once we received the memo from Suzanne that we needed to amend our IEPs because we needed to look at the new guidelines for the PARCC assessment. And we asked our teachers to do those amendments. Now again, we got this information in December. We asked our teachers to get this information and amend these IEPs by January 23rd with the parents, and they did that. We also sent letters out to all our parents of students with disabilities, letting them know the difference in these guidelines so that they were aware that they were going to be receiving calls from our building administrators and our IEP teams that we needed to change some of the IEPs for the allowable the difference in the allowable assessments of the park. So if you're looking at this information, what we did in our office is we looked through all the testing pages of all of our students with disabilities for the 2013 and 2014 school year. And with the OAAs, when we looked at Section 7 on the IEP, which is your allowable accommodations, your specially designed instruction, and how we were going to provide services, and we looked at our testing pages, they should have matched. And what the student is getting in the daily curriculum is what they should be allowed on the test. And that was a way that OAAs we perform, with the exception that they could not read the read aloud, the directions and the test. In 2013-14, we had 108 of our students have this accommodation. In 2014-15, with the new state ELA Park assessments, we had 0 students that qualified for this accommodation. The math and science and social studies, even though the student had a reading disability, they were still allowed to have the text-to-speech for that exam. But the difference is when in the 2012-13 or 2013-14 school district, the teachers that had these students were able to read those tests to them, and the children were familiar with those teachers, and because that's what they had in their daily curriculum. The change in 2015 was that they could still have that accommodation, but now it was a computer reading the test to them.
So knowing that we have challenges, and these items have been in place long before these results came out last week, we just wanted to talk about some of the interventions that we have in place starting in our elementary school. We have the we have the ability to have Title I services in reading in grades K to 5 and then math at RBC. We also have reading specialists. We have math specialists. Our students at Bissell participate in Tiger Camp, where our students with disabilities rotate through centers working with their intervention specialists. We have Roar into Reading, a tutoring program that we offer in the summer to 3rd graders. We also have Summer Reading Camp, which we offer July through August. And then we have Extra Scoop Tutoring, which starts today. And I'll talk a little more about that because you're probably thinking, hello, Extra Scoop Tutoring? What's that all about? So I'll just give you a little more information about that. In addition to having the interventions in place, you have been incredibly supportive of us having our academic coaching that we have RBC in the high school. This data here is based on the presentation that our teachers did at the OSBA conference in November. Because all these students don't necessarily take the same classes and all of the same assessments, we used MAP data and then also course passage rates at RBC. And our students who participated in academic coaching, 100% of the students passed English Language Arts 7 and 8, 94% of the students made growth on the MAP assessment, and then 87% of the students exceeded their MAP target. Mathematics in Math 7, we had 100% of the students pass. 94% of the students also made MAP growth, and then 81% of those students also exceeded their target in MAP with the students who have coaching services provided to them. At the high school, we do not, again, have a similar type of assessment that we could use all the way across the board for the language arts and math students. However, our coaches did use a measure, and they used course passage rate. And if you look here, all of our students in 14-15 had the highest passage rate that they've had in 5 years in their language arts and math courses. And I know you've heard about how pleased we are with the academic coaching program, and you all were in attendance at the presentation. So we can't say enough about that, but that intervention is working. It's just showed a little differently in this type of report. So now what we would like to do is talk about what our plan is moving forward.
recognize as a district that we have some work to do. And we've been proactive in looking at, not only looking at what we need for our students with disability, but for all of our students. Before we received our results this past week, our district has been actively involved in looking at our service delivery for students with special needs and building continuity of services. A couple years ago, I did a presentation where we looked at, here at the board, where we talked about continuity of services for our students with disability. We have some really good programs in our individual schools. And one of the things that we need to do is when our students transition from one building to the next, they have those same type of programs and services available to them. So we started this work. Last year we convened a district special ed committee, and our focus last year was to look at our transition process. And what we did was we had teachers from all of the buildings come together and develop a timeline and transition plan for all of our students going from one building to the next, so that we had the right people at the table and the right information was going from one district to or one building to the next building, so that those students could be successful moving from one building to the other. We know that we still have work to do. And in special education district-wide, our focal point is that we want continuity of services. And what we have done this year is with our district-level special ed committee, we talked about our delivery of services district-wide. There are some buildings that do not have resource rooms, and there are some buildings that do have resource rooms. There are some buildings that have MD classrooms for medically fragile kids, but we don't have services or classrooms to service our students with behavior problems. And you cannot put the two disabilities together, and it's just not a safe environment. So we recognize this. One of the things that we want to do in our district is we want our kids to be educated in our district. This year, we've been able to bring back 4 of our students that were out, and we're in the process of bringing a couple more back. We're in the transition process. So we want our students to be educated in our district, and we want to provide the services to them here, and the right services. So what we did is we saw a presentation in SST 8 where there are cohort groups being developed for next year to look at our service delivery district-wide. And this is not just for our students with disabilities, this is for all students. And Marvetta and I had a conversation with SST8 in regards to coming in and helping us with this process. And then we also had another meeting in February. That was in January of this year. In February of this year, curriculum and SST8 and pupil services talked about ways that we can look at our data and look at our least restrictive environment for our students, and what can we do to make sure that we have a comprehensive delivery of services district-wide. In next week, it's March the 10th, SST8 is coming to Twinsburg to meet with our building principals, and we're going to start this process of looking at our data, looking at the needs of our buildings, the services for our kids, so that we can start providing the programs and the services that we need in each building. Because as a child transitions from one building, a special ed child transitions from one building to the next, it's difficult. That in itself is difficult. But when you're transitioning and have different programming at one building and the next, that just kind of adds a little bit of more difficulty for that student. So those are the type of things that we have in place for in the next few weeks. We also have signed up for our district to be part of the cohort group next year that's going to be being trained with staff development through the SST8 for integrating comprehensive services delivery for all of our students. And if you remember, probably earlier this year or last year when we kicked off PBIS, what we did was we took stakeholders from each of the buildings and we took them and to be trained. We're doing that the same way this that we with service delivery we did with PBIS, but this time we're taking more central curriculum will be involved, principals, regular ed teachers, special ed teachers, related service guidance, all stakeholders from all the buildings. And what we want to do is we also want to look at our co-teaching model. And co-teaching, there's a lot of good services out there as far as co-teaching, and some of our staff here in Twinsburg have gone to different workshops on co-teaching, but we need to look at what's out there and what's best, and we all need to be doing the same co-teaching model and looking at good resources, and all of us be doing the same. So we're looking at possible doing a book study to see what's out there as far as co-teaching and adopt that, district-wide. The other thing that we're doing district-wide is in January, curriculum and our office together, we convened a team of stakeholders again from all of our buildings to look at our reading interventions programs. And what we've done so far, we visited some schools. We've seen, for example, Read 180 is one of the reading programs, and there's been several others that we've looked at. And what we're doing is we're reviewing all these programs, and then we're evaluating from teachers in our buildings that are working with our kids, what do our kids need that they don't have yet, and how can we adopt a program district-wide that when children move from one building to the other building, they're going to have those same services. And so then we're going to be making a recommendation as far as a reading program and services for our students, not only for special ed, but for all of our students.
Additionally, moving forward on the board agenda this evening, you will see some staff members to be hired for our extra scoop tutoring program that's beginning today. We are able to fund that with some Title I dollars that will service select students at Wilcox, Bissell, and Dodge in reading and math. And one thing Mrs. Trapphagen always talks about is the students just need an extra scoop of help or assistance. So that's how we came up with the name, and of course we'll celebrate with some ice cream at the end. But it's just to give the student, like their students that are on the bubble, they just need a little bit more help, a little more of a boost. So we're going to give them that extra scoop to boost them and help them to prepare for the end of the school year. We will be able to offer summer reading camp again in July and August for grades K through 4 based on scores on reading diagnostics. And moving forward, we have had the pleasure of having the curriculum days and the data days this year. So we know that a major focus is our ongoing professional development for all of our staff members, where we're investigating the best practices so we are making getting the most bang for our buck and getting the most with our teachers and students. And we've also had the ability to work with data analysis this school year. Moving forward, we like this graphic. One thing that we have to continue to think about is our students. And we want to prepare our students to be a 21st century learner. So we're preparing them to go out into the world. It's not necessarily specifically college and career ready, but if you are able to do those things, you will be college and career ready and ready to go on to life afterwards. So we want our students to be able to thrive in the 21st century. And finally, as Mrs. Powers mentioned, the snapshot we're providing tonight is just a day in the life of the students last school year. And our quality profile has such good information in it about our whole school year and everything about us that we are proud of and that we do. And then in closing, about 2 years ago we came up with the slogan, to know every child's story, and this year we added on to that it is our goal and our job to know each child's story and then to ensure his or her success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Farthing. Very comprehensive report, although we expected that. I've already seen, obviously some corrective actions. Usually this is the point where I ask, what do you need from the board? But I think you've indicated, and Mrs. Trapphagen indicated that you would be coming back with some additional recommendations. I don't know if there's anything you would want to add to what you need right now or what you're thinking about in other programs.
No, just I would say please thank you for your support, your continued support. And at this moment we don't have any thing we're recommending. We're very I'm thankful we have that Title I carryover so we can, again, give those students that extra scoop and be able to provide the summer reading camp. So we do have some things built into place. We just need to continue to strengthen our programming.
Questions? I know.
I have just one question, Ms. Farthing. And I too, I think we all kind of shared in the disappointment that you had mentioned, Superintendent, in regards to ODE telling us that we would be given 2 different grades, one including those parents whose children, did not take the test, and the other, that did not include them. Instead of including them as zeros, as failures, would not include them. I think I was actually able to find that number after a few mouse clicks. It's kind of hidden.
You are.
And it's not as big. Can you reiterate what that actual, I would call it the truer number that would measure the actual performance of all that took the test?
Exactly. If you go both into our achievement measure, down at the bottom, there's that 2015 modified achievement measure. And if you click on that, the first thing that opens is a spreadsheet that's not very helpful, but there are tabs at the bottom. And then the second tab will talk about the schools and the district's measures. So if you click on that, it will give us the option, and it will show you the students that our true picture of the story without our students that opted out. And then the same thing with the gap closing report. If you click on the AMO download file, when that file opens, there are lots of columns to that, but if you scroll over to the end, it will show you our score with the demotion and without the demotion.
And if my math is correct, and I'm not a mathematician, so our PI number with the adjusted appeared to more correlate to where our PI was last year, percentage-wise.
Correct.
It's still a B grade, but the percentage was significantly higher than it was and more in line with what it was last year.
Correct.
Am I correct? Okay.
My phone a friend back here, Lori. That's why Lori and Marvetta are here with us this evening for our moral support, and also if we have additional questions that they could help us with. Yes, our PI would have been a 100.2, which, as we discussed, yes, it would still be a B, but it's a more solid B. Like we're close to a C, and so we would prefer a nice solid B. Again, 6 districts in the state of Ohio earned an A. I would love to say that we're going to be there, but that's a lofty goal.
I wanted to comment on something Mr. Slura mentioned, how we were promised, and Superintendent Powers read this as well, how the OD had said we were going to have a different look and comparison. And the background behind that is there's a lot of legislative efforts that was bubbling up that our district was participating in, that were asked to contribute and comment. And when the ODE said, oh, we got it, we'll give you 2 reports, the legislators backed off. And then, as we know, 7-10 days later, threw it out the window, and it's not reflected, as we expected. So that's the degree of frustration that not only the administration and the Board of Education, but all the educators are going through. It's a moving target. And if you don't even know what the criteria is, that's why some of this is so confusing. And while we might not want to try to solve things legislatively, we don't have any choice. We have to work with the legislators. They have to work with the Ohio Department of Education. And I'm sure some of my other colleagues might have some comments on that as well. So I just wanted to point out there were a lot of efforts up until the point legislation stopped. And I understand it's still on hold. We may see it again now that, Ohio Department of Education did not come through on what they said they would do.
Yes, on Thursday, our disappointment was just like crushing, because we assumed that it would be right on there, and the click wasn't required, that it would, just be another line. Mm-hmm. So that was our very much frustration.
We know people skim.
Sadness.
Everybody skims, everybody just glances, and if you don't click through, you're not going to know.
That's correct.
I think part of the frustration, too, is I've seen it reported in quite a few places, different news sources here and there, that doesn't reflect that second number at all.
Right.
And I know that's frustrating,
Sure is.
So I'll make a couple of comments. I'm not going to reiterate what Mr. Solora has emphasized, but that's a key point. The other is with respect to our subgroup data. This is something that's kind of been there since No Child Left Behind, but when you look at value added. It's true. It's not, when you don't have the same cohort of kids moving from year to year, and you pull a significant portion of them out, that is going to impact the grade. So I get that, but what people like to do is compare our districts to other districts, and when you look at the cohorts, you can't do that. The distribution and percentages in one district aren't the same in another district, and the extent to which one district had opt-outs or maybe not, and those that did, it's truly apples to oranges, absent looking at, moving from one testing entity to another over 2 years. That only exacerbates the problem. So I want to make sure that the public is clear with respect to that. I'm not even talking about interpreting the data or drilling down the data, which I think that you guys have done a nice job doing that and providing as much explanation as you possibly can. But there are a lot of different dynamics that go into play that you're not going to read in a newspaper. I happen to live in this world, so I understand it a little bit better than most. The other piece has to do with, and I guess I might have some questions, Ms. Traphagen, with respect to special education. Very familiar with the Office of Exceptional Children, and also Dr. Suzake. Was not aware. I knew that the guidance came out late, but the extent to which you guys had to jump through as many hoops, changing ETRs, changing IEPs to make sure that they are compliant with the new and late guidance is one thing, but having to schedule these meetings, and I know it's hard enough to do it when you're supposed to do it, when they come up, but to do it in a condensed time frame with as many families that you had, hats off to you. That's a heck of a lot of work.
Hats off to our teachers and our building
Yeah,
administrators.
and I know it's, and so when I say to you, I'm really talking about, excuse me, our intervention specialists, our psychologists, everybody, that's involved in that process. That's like trying to corral cats, and it's really difficult when you have to do it in a condensed time frame. That being said, some of the things that you guys are implementing moving forward, you mentioned an integrated service delivery model. Is that more akin to, or is that similar to what what I like to call a universal design model for learning? Is it kind of a little comprehensive, where you're looking to kind of engage all stakeholders in the learning process?
It's engaging all stakeholders, and Mr. Curtis, we are just at the beginning process of that, and what we'd be happy to do is in next week, when we're having the SST is coming up and doing the presentation with our principals, we've gotten a few handouts from the SST as far as where they want to take us, as far as looking at our district's data, and then looking at what's going on in our buildings and what we need to strengthen, and what we're doing good and what we need to change. And we could certainly report that back to you, because we're still in the early stages of that. And but it is we're not just looking at students with disabilities, we're looking at all of our students.
Well, exactly, and that's why I mentioned universal design for learning,
absolutely.
because it is all students, and it takes time to do it and implement it with fidelity. So I get it. I'm not expecting something to happen overnight. I was very pleased to hear that. I'm a big fan of that kind of model. Great. And last but not least, I appreciate you guys putting up the formative assessment data. And when you're looking at short cycle data, and as you have your teacher meetings, I mean that's the most meaningful way to gauge learning, to identify weaknesses and skills, and to use that information to help teachers drive instruction. I mean, that's really, if I had a crystal ball or a wand that I could wave, that's what should be used throughout the state in each district to measure student progress. I think it's the most reliable information, and I think that it's something that you can really hang your hat on, and it's something that can be proven and backed up with with real data, not some real complex formula to measure student progress. So those are my comments, and I think my colleagues will concur. It's frustrating having to go to these lengths to provide explanation because newspapers and other media don't go to the lengths to describe and explain the extent to which they come to these conclusions. So I appreciate the superintendent and her remarks, as well as the curriculum director and others that have taken the time to explain things in a more comprehensive manner. I know that there's a lot more work to do, but I know it's being done. So I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Curtis and Board of Education, because we need your support in doing this, and we certainly appreciate everything you do for us. Thank you.
Any more comments? Anything else, Mrs. Powers?
No, just thank you for your attention this evening. We have a lot more questions than we have answers, and we'll continue to do the work that we do every day. And the directors here and their supervisor colleagues are doing a great job for the Board of Education. They work closely with our staff and offer assistance to them in analyzing data and putting into place instructional practices that address our students' needs. So thank you for your continued support. And I'm sure this will be continued as we are able to drill down with more information.
Thank you. All right, moving on in the agenda, we're at G, remonstrance. I don't see Mr. Aho, any blue cards, so we're going to move on to H, the treasurer's reports and recommendations. H1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following meeting minutes, regular meeting of February 17, 2016, as sent to the board under separate cover. Is there a motion as read?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Curtis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Slura. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes. And that item passes 5-0. We are now at action items. I believe in I, and I'm going to go ahead and read 1, 2, and 3 concurrently without any objection from my colleagues. I-1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the certificated licensed personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit I-1 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. I-2, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the classified personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit I-2 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. And I-3, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Is there a motion for those three as read?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Turl Waldron. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes. And those three items pass 5-0. And continuing on with action items, new business under J. Without objection from my colleagues, I will read the first 7. J1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the following donations from Target in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Take Charge of Education program per the attached exhibit. J2, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts an anonymous donation in the amount of $4,500 to support the summer reading camp program as sent to the board under separate cover. J3, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the following donations from Samuel Bissell PTA per the attached exhibit. J4, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the attached listing of media center items to be deleted from inventory per the attached exhibit J4. J5, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a proposal for an overnight extended student trip for the THS student and coaching staff to travel to the OHSAA State Diving Championship in Canton, February 26 and 27, 2016. The trip will be paid by the athletic department funds with support from the Twinsburg Athletic Boosters as sent to the board under separate cover. J6, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a proposal for an overnight extended student trip for the THS girls bowling team to travel to the OHSAA State Bowling Tournament in Columbus, March 4th, 5th, 2016. The trip will be paid for by the athletic department funds with support from the Twinsburg Athletic Boosters as sent to the board under separate cover. And finally, J7, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the release of transportation for one student for the 2015-2016 school year to the Twinsburg City School District from Nordonia City District as sent to the board under separate cover. Is there a motion for those 7 as read? Moved by Ms. Torwalder. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Curtis. Any discussion? Any explanation maybe on J7, Mrs. Powers? That's kind of a standard release of transportation.
Correct. So basically what that means is that there's a Nordonia School District student who has babysitting here in our district who attends Cuyahoga Valley Christian Academy in Aurora. So instead of the Nordonia bus coming to where the student's babysitter is and proceeding through town, our bus, since we already have a bus stop on that street by the babysitter, is going to take the child to CBCA for Nordonia, and then the school district of Nordonia releases that child for the purpose of funding and such for transportation purposes.
Sure. And this is a common item among districts as a courtesy, and we see this a couple times a year, but I appreciate the explanation. Any other comments on any of the other items?
Just a thank you to for all the donations. PTA is great to our school district, and we always appreciate them being on board with helping our teachers in the classroom. So thank you to them.
Of course, always very good. Nice to see the donations every meeting. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Turl Waldron.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
Mr. Solera.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Felber.
Yes. And those 7 items pass 5-0. J8, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the purchase of 4 stock unit 72 passenger buses at the total cost of $316,136 pursuant to the terms and conditions set forth to the proposal sent to the board under separate cover. The buses will be purchased from the Ohio Schools Council, bid secured for the 2015-2016 school year from Cardinal Bus Sales in Lima, Ohio. Buses will be paid for with permanent improvement funds in July 2016. Is there a motion for that as read?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Solera. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Torl Waldron. And I believe Chad maybe explanation here. This is from what I believe the ability to secure pricing.
Sure. So this is part of our 10-year replacement cycle of buses so that we continue to have up-to-date buses. And we were able to negotiate using last year's prices, which should save us a few dollars compared to this year. So that the other pieces, we're adding a couple equipment units to help with some of our trips as well.
Okay. So as normal, this is part of our regular rotation.
Yes.
Getting the pricing now secured. So, I know we're not allowed to say saving money, but our treasurer doesn't like that. But again, the purchase is going to be done at the normal time. It's being done in July.
Right.
Just in a sense, they're extending the courtesy of this year's pricing.
Right, we were able to extend our price protection and not incur additional costs for next year.
It's always good when we can take advantage of that. Any further questions from my colleagues?
Now, Chad, as we brought up at the Building and Grounds a few weeks ago, this also, if I'm still correct, actually built into this, we actually have a bus that is supposed to be is on the lot for replacement next year, needing significant work, about $15,000 to $20,000 if I remember correctly. Through working with this, Chad's been able to secure a lease bus that we'll get at no charge throughout the rest of the school year, which means that we don't have to fix the bus that we were going to get rid of anyway. So that actually is a savings to the district. So, good. There's just another good example of what he's able to do for us. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for pointing that out. Any further questions? Roll call.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes, and those items pass 5-0. We're at miscellaneous. I'll start with my colleagues. Anything to point out?
Just a quick update on, we have had a few small challenges with heat and air over at Dodge. We do have a service contract, and it is being taken care of. So I know there were some concerns with that, so we can assure you that everything is going to be okay and get fixed as it should be.
Anything else from my colleagues?
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to the girls basketball team. I had the pleasure of attending that game in Euclid. Heartbreaker. One point within, seconds that we dropped that one to Nordonia, but they played hard. They left it all out on the court, and I couldn't have been more proud to be there in support of them. The other has to do with the hockey team. So I went to the first playoff game, and that was my first game that I went to all year, and it probably was the best one. We ended up shutting out Mayfield. It was just awesome. It was a great atmosphere to be a part of. The parents were over the moon. We had a lot of students there as well, so I was slapping hands and high-fiving and whatnot. I also had the opportunity to go to the second game that they moved on to play a university school. A whole different level of competition and talent there. U.S., from what I understand, they've actually won the state title some years ago. Again, left it all out there on the ice. Was happy to see that we competed, and from what I understand, this is the first time we've been in the postseason as a hockey team for the district. So nothing to be ashamed of. I was, happy that I was able to be in attendance and witness 2 games. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledge that.
All right. Anything further from my colleagues? Mrs. Powers?
Not this evening, thank you.
Tina?
Just
Yes.
a quick comment, yes. In regards to this report that we heard, we have disappointment, we have questions that are yet to be answered, but I just want to, myself, thank all our teacher and our staff and everybody who's involved in all the hard work they do for our kids. I know, in my own education, I can't tell you what an assessment did for me. What I can tell you is the teachers that made a difference. I can tell you the activities and the projects and all the hands-on learning. Those are the things I remember, and that's the takeaway for me. And I just want to thank all our teachers and staff for all their hard work.
All right. Seeing no other business, I'm going to make the motion to adjourn and call for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Slura. Roll call, please.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0, and we are adjourned. Good evening.